Hello, and what is up, FMC people? Today I'm just going to be breaking down my PB mean of 3 that I just got at home, 19.33 moves. I've been going through a really good spout of good FMC results recently for like literally no reason. I have not been practicing very much. College is very busy. I just started, it's my freshman year. However, I've experienced this before where like when you don't practice as much, you start getting good results for like literally no reason. So not complaining, but here's 19.33 mean of 3. And also look out for my recons of my latest official couple of means, 21.0 and 21.3. This first solve was probably the most straightforward out of all the solutions. This one was a 20, and it was just pretty normal. So this scramble was pretty all right. It was 6 bad, 6 bad, 8 bad, but there was quite a few 4-move EOs and even more 5-movers. So I did a 5-move EO on this UD axis. So the bad edges are here, 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 and here. So here you can do R L prime or R prime L prime, and that sets up to the 3-move trigger where you have 3 bad edges on this U face and 3 bad edges on this D face. And also, I just noticed it makes this 2x2x1 block, which is pretty epic. So now there's a couple ways you can do the 3-move trigger. The one I did was U, B2, D. And, well, you can see how this is good, hopefully. You have, well, first of all, you have a pretty good DRM on this UD axis. But apart from that, it's literally JZP and 5 moves, which is really good. And I think there are some 11-move DRs just straight from here. I don't exactly remember what they gave, but you can actually get a 10-move DR if you switch. So here you are. And for recognition, it's just literally this, this 2C case, which is literally just 5 more moves to DR with crazy variations. So many variations. And also, there's there are 2 different variations that are not HTR equivalent, so they could theoretically give 2 different subsets. However, this did not give 2 different subsets. They were both 2C3s, and 2C3 is a really good subset, so I'm not complaining at all. So you can either start with a U or a U prime. I'm sorry, a B or a B prime, and they both give 2C3. So the variation I went with was B. And now you can do U2, F, U2, F. And the good thing about this is that this is a JZP sequence, so there are even more variations on top of that. So I spent a while looking at actually switching after this, because usually when you have a DR with a lot of variations, it's best to look at, it's best to switch after the variation side, because you can do reductions on the other side and then switch back to the side with all the variations. However, in this case, it was set up, this variation specifically was already set up to this, this 5-move trigger for HTR. However, that was pretty bad, so what I tried doing was, instead of doing the 5-move trigger directly, you can do an L2 first, which is just a random move. Actually, I ended up doing R2 instead. And now you can just do straight HTR, B2, R prime, U2, R, U2, R. So that is HTR in 17 moves. And now F2, U2, R2. And that solves the cube in 20 moves, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, there's the 20. This next solve was a crazy sprint scramble. This is like one of the best scrambles I've ever gotten, like not counting some of my EO skips that I've gotten. But this scramble was just absolutely ridiculous. So there's 2 bad edges on this on green front. There are 4 bad edges on red front, and I think there are 4 bad edges on white front. So 2-4-4 is a crazy EO split. So I only checked 4 movers on this scramble. So on this FB axis, there are 2 bad edges. They are here and here. And you can do a 4-move Nis EO with F, and now you switch, And now there are a couple ways to do EO from here. The way I went with was R D prime F. So that's EO in 4 moves. So now if you look over here, it is just one more move to JZP, which is pretty nice. So after this, there's a 10 move 4B2 that you can find. There's actually a bunch of 10 move 4B2s you can find because this has a whole bunch of variations. But the way I went with was U, and now it's just RZP, R2, F2, R2, D, and that is 10 to 4B2, 4E. And I actually only started checking this with about 10 minutes left because I found this really, really nice 9 to 2C3 that had a whole bunch of variations, and I spent almost the entire attempt checking that, and I didn't really think to check this 10 to 4B2. The 9 to 2C3 ended up giving, I think it was like a 21, I don't quite remember. It wasn't something that was super good for the scramble, but I ended up checking this with like 10 minutes left. So after getting the 10 4B2, you can switch to the inverse, and then this is where I realized, holy moly, this DR might actually give something really good, because this is just set up to immediately to the 4-move trigger. R, U2, F2, L gives HTR in 14 moves, and there are some variations that you can, there are some variations on that where you can get multiple HTRs in 14. So that's really good. However, I didn't end up doing the HTR in 14. I instead just did the R and then mistraced and was like, holy crap, this might be really, really good if I switch, because on the inverse, it looks like this. So this is like sort of a 3-move HTR case if you ignore the slice. So D2, B2, L. Actually, that's a 2-move HTR case because the D cancels. So this could be a 2-move HTR case if you find a way to make these E-layer edges behave. And there is a very strong possibility that we can get these E-layer edges to behave because this DR is made with JZP and has ridiculous variations. So I can modify this sequence in order to make these E-layer edges behave. So I then undid these 4 moves, so D prime, R2, F2, R2, and I tried to find a variation that would give me a really short HTR. And so then there's a little funky thing that happened, which is I just solved the entire fucking cube. So you can just solve the entire cube like this. So you can do L2, B2, and now R2, and now you can kind of just see the cube just solving itself. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, okay, that's a sub 20. That is a really, really good solve. But I thought it was going to be like an 18 or 19. And then I wrote it out, and it was a 17. And I was like, holy moly, that is quite a good solve. So that's a 17. I'm very proud of this one. It's also optimal off the scramble. You can't do better than 17 on this scramble. All right, on to the third solve. The third solve is probably the craziest one of them all. Now on to the third solve. So going into this solve, I was super, super nervous because I wanted to, well, not super nervous, but I was pretty nervous because I wanted to get at least a 21 to break my PV mean of 3. It's been 1967 for a while, and I wanted to get 1933. So I did this attempt with Chris Chi over Discord, and Chris generated the scramble. Well, he didn't generate it. He got it from an online competition. And so beforehand, I was like, Chris, this better be a good scramble. So I get the scramble, I start the attempt, and on this FP axis, there are 10 bad edges. On this RL axis, there are 10 bad edges, and on the UD axis, there are, you guessed it, 10 bad edges. This is quite literally the worst scramble in terms of edge counts that I've ever seen in my 800 plus attempts of doing FMC. I was so lost for words when I saw this. There are 25 sub 6 EOs available in the scramble. I found 12 of them. Should probably have found more, but yikes. This scramble was terrible. And also, a funny thing about this scramble, spoiler alert, I found a 21 on it. During the attempt, I thought it was a 23. And then Chris sent me afterwards, he sent me a fun fact, which is that I missed optimal by 3 on my DR. So off this DR, optimal is 20, and I found a 23, and I was super bummed about it. So the next morning, I went back to my computer and tried to figure out what I missed. And so I put the DR into Nissi, and I was like, what the hell did I miss? How did I miss optimal by 3 on this DR? And then I found like this super reasonable 20. I mean, the super reasonable 21 that I should have found. And I was like, how did I not find this? So I looked at my notes, and I was like, oh, wait, I have this. This is the solution I wrote down. What? So I look at the solution I wrote down, I count the moves. It's 21 moves. It's not 23. I counted the freaking moves wrong. So that was a pleasant surprise. I did not miss optimal by 3. I missed optimal by 1, and the 20 was like not very findable anyways. I'll go over it afterwards. But that was a ridiculous situation. But I'm just glad I found the 21. Anyways, ramble over. Let's get into the actual solve. So 10 bad edges on each axis. So basically you want to be checking 1 move to 8 bad on scrambles like this. 1 move to 8 bad, 1 move to 6 bad, or like FB giving 2 moves to 4 bad. So here I did B, which reduces to 8 bad, and after switching, there are a bunch of ways to make EO in 5 moves. The good edges are here, 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 and here. The one I went with was ULFB, and this EO gives 7C8E in only 5 moves. And also, one good thing about it is that it finishes with LFB, and this sequence has good variations. You can switch this L to an L prime to give a different variation, or you can just insert any amount of half turns after this L and before the FB. And that was actually where the 20 was. Oops. But I'm not mad at myself for missing that because that's really hard to see. So after switching to the inverse, because it's 7C8E, there's a nice 11 move DR, which is, so you do D prime F2 to make the block, and now you do D prime RDL for the trigger, and that is 4B2 in 11 moves. There's also 2 variations of this. You can start with either a U prime or a D prime, and I did the one that started with a D prime. It had a lot more blocks. So after this, I was checking HTRs on the inverse because the variations are on the normal. Actually, there are variations on both sides now I think about it. But here you can do D prime to give a 2C3. And now there are, I think, like 3 or 4 different ways you can get to HTR in 19 moves from here. The way I went with was L2, F2, so you need to do the parity fix. And now you can do U prime to give 4B2, and now F2, and now U prime, L2, U prime to give HTR in 19 moves. And this HTR isn't wonderful. It really isn't great. So, however, if you remember back to the EO, this EO has some variations. So you can do LFB or L prime FB. So what I did was I tried switching the L to an L prime and then doing the same HTR. And then, well, it looks like this. So 3 more moves to finish, and the F2 cancels with the F on the normal. So that is a 2-move HTR finish, which gives a 21. And also, I widened these 2 quarter turns to solve the slice in 0 moves. So that's a 21 on quite literally the worst scramble I've ever seen. Yeah, that was ridiculous. So, and that's 2017-21 equals 19.33. Yay, sub WR. Super happy about that. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye.